Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the RDA Central West Business Leaders Breakfast. And I'm excited to be joined by Mr. Craig Murphy from Performance IT. Craig, welcome to breakfast.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. I'm very humbled to be here, actually.
Yeah, no, really excited to sit down and have a chat this morning. Craig, you've had a long history in IT, over 25 years. You've been heavily involved, I guess, in the Global Entrepreneurs Program through IBM. But for the viewers that might not be across, I guess, your professional background, Can you give us a little bit more about that and then, I guess, touch on your journey to the Central West?
Sure. So I originally started, actually not in IT, I actually started in automotive as a parts interpreter. It used to be an apprenticeship back in the day, so I started as an apprentice. Towards the end of that, we did a semester on computers and how computers can be used for parts management and warehouse management, stock management. The company I worked for at the time had a computer, but we weren't really allowed to use it. I kind of felt that the world was heading towards that, so I applied for a job at a medical company, which was a storeman, and part of the job was they would teach you how to use computers. That was a fabulous journey. It actually fast-tracked my career into IT. At the end of the 8 years at that company, I was actually the IT manager when I left. And that started me on a journey working mostly around IBM, but so IBM resellers, distributors, finally running my own company, and then last 4 years working actually for IBM, which was a really awesome part of my career. I valued that time greatly. It taught me, probably again at this stage of my career, taught me what does the current world look like. Even though I've been doing a lot of modern computer around cloud technologies and Internet of Things and stuff like that, I think IBM really reinforced what the opportunity was around that. So so it's been a really interesting journey. I love that I actually started with a customer, so it's great now that I'm back to consulting and helping customers, that I can understand their pain points and understand what their budgets are and how that actually operates. So.
And I guess that probably leads into my next question. So you've set up Performance IT.
Yep.
What are the ambitions of Performance IT?
Sure.
And what are some of the kind of learnings that you've gained through this long experience that you hope you can then convey and pass on to our local businesses?
Sure. So probably morphing by the day. Thank you, our current environment. Performance IT is actually a company I've had for over 15 years now. I spent a lot of time traditionally around putting large-scale infrastructure into data centers, and a lot of work associated with that. But as a later part of, before I joined IBM, I started to do a lot of work with cloud computing, primarily with Amazon Web Services. For those that don't know, the book company also runs a huge public cloud, which is what actually led me to IBM. But what I think the challenge is today for businesses is I think there's probably more education. For me, it's a lot of learning, particularly out here in the Central West, trying to understand what businesses actually want, and that's why our current pandemic has actually interrupted some of that for myself. I am getting a really good handle on what businesses are after and what businesses are chasing. I think the thing I'm trying to let businesses know that is, the barrier to entry now for technology is so low. We've democratized enterprise IT. So what traditionally would have cost millions of dollars, to get like a machine learning platform up and running or a large scale collaboration tool up and running, is now no longer the case. Anybody with a credit card sitting on their couch can actually, get some of this technology up and going and relatively simply. And a lot of times you don't need to be a developer to get the basics of it going. So I think what I really want to try and help business with now is break that down and not put technology in for technology's sake, but help them understand what technology is available to them, and maybe they can think of some creative ideas how that might actually fit in work in their business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for some businesses, technology is still seems a bit overwhelming.
Yes.
But as you've said, I think you're right. Over the last, say, 5 years, and probably in your professional journey, there's been exponential growth, but it's been simplified in a lot of ways as well for business. I guess, what excites you most about the application of technology for business? And where do you see, I guess, IT going over the next 5 years or so? And the last element to that one is, what's an area of, I guess, of technology in business that is evolving? Because we're on an exponential growth rate, but maybe that businesses might not have even thought about at this point.
So I think the next 5 years I think is going to be really, really interesting. I do hope businesses, particularly small businesses, do start to embrace technology put aside some of their profits towards implementing some of that. And it's beyond just a website or a social media page or something like that. It's actually doing something that might, be creative for your business. More importantly, making sure that that piece of tech might be a revenue generator, right? So I think a lot of businesses traditionally look at IT as a cost of something, like rent, right? It's a cost to run their business. Not thinking about the forefront of how maybe that technology could help improve their business, help improve their bottom line, maybe some automation. There's a whole bunch of things you could think about. I think the current pandemic has caused a lot of businesses to rethink. And I think, we were discussing earlier, a good use case is a lot of businesses have video, and why people might just think of video as just something to monitor what might be going on inside your store or your business.
Or to do very engaging business breakfasts.
Exactly, which we'll talk about as well. But video could be used to count people that come in and out of the business. So if you've got a premise that has to have a limit of the number of people that are allowed inside your business, this is a way to automate that. So rather than have a staff member managing that, which costs money and loses sales potentially, you could automate that by having the cameras count the amount of people in the business, have a piece of technology connected to electronic door lock. You won't let anybody else in till you're at the number that you're required to by law. Like, this might get more serious in the future. Victoria is showing that way a little bit there. But and that technology is not like futuristic. That technology is actually available today, here and now. Electronic door locks are dime a dozen now. Cameras are easy to connect, and the piece of AI that AI, it's not a word I like, but machine learning that is leveraged off the cloud. So these things can be done today, and I think that's what I'd like to see is businesses think a little bit more creative. The other thing is video engagement with customers, right? Which is something I haven't seen a lot of businesses actually uptake. I see a lot of business to business done like that, and I'm sure you do the same. I spend pretty much most of my day on Zoom, or Teams or whatever, and now I find Amazon's got a product now as well, which I used yesterday. But I think I'm not seeing a lot of businesses use video for customer engagement, so it could be the cafe, so again, if we go back down where you can't visit your cafe again, but you can only do takeaway, maybe cafes could look to use, social media video, like Facebook or YouTube, or even things like Zoom or FaceTime to engage with your customer on an order, right? So rather than the traditional go to the website, put an order in, maybe take a video order in a traditional model, write it down and then have them set a time for them to come and pick it up. So I think video's is a little bit of an underestimated and underrated technology at the moment, but I think, as time moves forward, we'll see lots and lots of cool uses for it. So,
I think you're absolutely right. And you think about where video, for that matter, for social media purposes and marketing purposes have come from 5 years ago. It's, as we said earlier, it's on an exponential growth rate, so I'll be curious where it gets to over the next little while.
It's quite amazing, and I'm doing a lot of, as this kind of little side business, we're doing a fair bit of online video at the moment, so live streaming and bits and pieces like that. We're working with a startup in Sydney who's doing online raffles, so club raffles, which traditionally were in-house, are actually now moving to a hybrid model, so part in-house and part. And people are, and so their engagement back to their member base, is still there, and that's what the clubs really, really want. Matter of fact, I've got a friend whose wife actually sits down on Friday nights with a glass of wine in hand and actually watches the online raffle at their favourite club on the North Coast that they like to visit. So it's coming along, and as I said, I'm definitely seeing more and more traction in that space.
And I guess one of the things from COVID is it's forced businesses to pivot, to adapt, and maybe that's going to fast track this adaptation of this technology.
Yeah.
So look, one of the things that we touched on in your intro was your extensive background within the startup community in Australia through your role at IBM. How important is it to foster innovation and collaboration in that technology space? And secondly, what do you think are some key traits that make a successful startup, or key traits traits you need to be thinking about to kind of help you through this journey?
For sure. So look, I'm a big believer in innovation. So, and I think it's not innovation for innovation's sake, as I mentioned earlier. I think it's getting people's creative minds to think about the art of the possibility. Corporates are starting to do that. A lot of corporates are adopting, the startup mentality. But I think, it's a little bit of a slow journey for them. We needed something that's a little bit quicker. And the startup mentality, is not just about a startup itself, but it's something that any business can adopt. So it's about, how do you quickly, design something, Proof of concept it, test it. If it doesn't work, fail it, start again. So I think all businesses can adapt to that type of mentality. But I think this, there's a lot of thought around, that maybe a lot of the economy will move to small businesses in it, which is where startups will be really, really important. And why corporates may exist as a brand, they may actually be made up of a lot of small entities under the covers, right, providing different types of services within that large corporate. Whether we see that come to fruition, it's a big question. But also, I think, so I think startups play a huge important role in that. What makes a successful startup versus not successful one? Luck. Yeah. Like it's pure luck. I've seen some, over my time, particularly with IBM, and I was working with startups a lot before IBM as well. I've seen what on paper look like really amazing startups and should be, absolutely crushing it right now, but they're not. And matter of fact, quite a few of them don't actually exist. And it's just timing. It's just timing, and it's a bit of luck. It's not about their technology. It's not about their business case. It's not about what they're trying to solve. I think it comes down to a fair bit of timing. So part of it's luck. A part of it is, but it also adopting the startup ethos. If your market's changing, you've very quickly got to pivot with that. So we can all use the Uber and the Airbnb case studies and stuff like that, which probably those businesses are not today what they maybe originally planned to be. But the fact that they can very quickly adapt and morph along with the market shows what a successful startup can actually do. But a lot of it is actually unfortunately luck.
And timing. I think what you said, the timing is true, and you've seen it during this period. There's been businesses that have quickly pivoted and been able to really capitalise, recalibrate their business, and has really taken off. And there's been some in the manufacturing space now, manufacturing medical supplies, and the demand that they have in Australia and now demand coming from overseas has been astronomical.
It's quite funny you say that for a country that the press would have us believe can't manufacture. It's quite interesting how very quickly we're able to get some of this manufacturing up and running. It's like, where do all these sewing machines come from, and where do all these plastic production plants coming from? So clearly these things are here. I guess what we've got to do is we've got to put the spotlight on those businesses and showcase that they're here and how they have actually quickly adapted. And a company I buy a fair few of my camping supplies from, who do a lot of sewing with canvas, very quickly adapted and started making masks in the early days, which was awesome. But these companies exist. They're here in this country, which is really cool.
I'm getting on a bit of a tangent, but I do, which sometimes happens. But I do think that's one of the positives that is going to come out of this period is a recalibration of domestic manufacturing in Australia. And I think there's some real positive opportunities in that space going forward. And there's just a couple of examples in action. Now, you've been in the IT game for over 25 years. A career in IT 25 years ago probably looks vastly different to what a career looks like now.
Definitely does.
How important are STEM skills in that kind of space, and what lessons would you tell your younger self with the benefit of hindsight, I guess?
So IT is definitely morphed. When I first started my IT career, there was no email, there was no World Wide Web. We were doing telexes and faxes and all sorts of crazy things, and things moved along very, very rapidly during that time.
It's a fair point. I don't think the web really kicked off. I think it was 94 or 95.
Correct.
So in the scheme of things, that's not a long time.
It's not a long time. And you think of where, I can remember like the first web page that we saw, compared to what we've got now, live streaming video, all sorts of crazy things. It's definitely changed a lot. So as far as STEM, I think, STEM is hugely important. I think what you got, it's to create, get the kids excited, get teachers excited, right? And get the community excited get us excited back about technology and science and things like that. Encourage kids. They don't have to be a programmer, but encourage them to learn programming, right? Again, we don't want them, they don't have to be programmers or developers, but just it's great because we're moving towards a world where small businesses might actually develop their own application. And it'd be nice for those businesses to have the ability to talk to developers in a way that they can mutually connect with each other. And we probably wouldn't have so many of the disconnects that we have right now. So I think STEM is, as I said, is massively important. What would I tell myself? probably concentrate on maths a little bit more. I always had a big interest in science, so and I think science, develops that curiosity, and I think that's what we've maybe lost a little bit as a community, as a culture. I feel that science does develop that. How does that work, and how did that come together, and why is that leaf green? Ask those type of questions. And I think when you come over into the commercial, in a career, that's what, for me, when I'm working with IT folks, that's what I want to see. I want to see that. Why does that do that, and how can we fix it, or how can we improve that? And I think hopefully STEM, can create that with our kids, and for a future around that. So
yeah, I think that's a fair point. It's that questioning mentality probably fosters and drives that new ideas, new thinking, and innovation at its core. Yeah. Now we're just going to change tack, jump into the Fast Five for this week. Favorite element of every chat.
Yeah.
Now, a new question for this week. Yeah. We all have plenty of apps on our phone.
Yes.
If you had to delete all your apps bar 3, which ones would make the cut?
All right, so Google Maps would never leave my phone. It is absolutely my favourite app.
We were actually talking just before about the days with the old UBD in your car, how you had to, tab the pages when you were making a trip. Yep, fair point.
So Google Maps, I'm a big Slack user. So Slack, for the people who don't know, is a collaborative tool. I use it not just for within teams that I work with, for business opportunities. I also use it to communicate with some friends and stuff like that. So Slack is a private social media tool, to keep it real simple, but it's a great tool for people who are in the business community, might actually know that is Teams.
It's really good for, it's like Microsoft Teams in one element, and it's great for work businesses. So all those businesses tuning in today, if you have a remote workforce, check out Slack. Has some fantastic applications that I think could really benefit local businesses.
And it starts for free.
Yeah, especially in this environment where you have dispersed workforces.
Correct, where you want to communicate. So Slack, and for entertainment, it would be YouTube. I'm a bit of a YouTube junkie, so.
Okay, well, for me, I reckon it would have to be WhatsApp, ABC app, just to keep my news kind of intake, and the AFL app, because I'm a big AFL fan and I need to know what's going on. So, top band or artist?
So my music is extremely diverse. So, Queen, Prince, Pinal, I have on my Google playlist at the moment, lots of random electronica at the moment, so it varies. It can be country music tomorrow, so very, very varied. But I've really come back to the core of it. I've always been a big Queen fan. So if I had to pick a single band, it would probably be Queen.
Well, they had some classic hits, didn't
they? They did have some massive hits.
Now, hidden gem of the Central West, you're a relative newcomer to the region, as am I. But if you were trying to showcase our region to visiting family or friends, what would be a hidden gem that you'd need to make sure they see?
I'll do one that's for me a little bit personal, and I'll do it. So I'm a motorsport tragic, so a favourite Sunday afternoon would be to go out to the go-kart track here at Orange, sit quietly out the back of my car, have my camera, take some photos, watch some great racing. Some of these young kids that race out here are awesome. So that would be my enjoyable Sunday afternoon. I probably wouldn't drag my family along to that. From a family perspective, we do a bit of touring, and we have a 4-wheel drive, so hitting those back roads, so when we travel, so if we're going to go somewhere for lunch, and if we're going to go down to Cowra, or we're going to go over to Parks, we try and veer off a little bit and disappear down one of the side roads, and it's pretty amazing what you discover. So one of the things we discovered around that was out near Parks, there's an aeroplane museum out there, which I'm sure a lot of people are not actually aware of. And that was fantastic. So while at the time we couldn't get in, we did have a wander around the aircraft that were outside, and I thought that was kind of cool. So I guess it's not a specific thing, but I think it's wandering off the track a little bit and having a bit of a look around. I think there's so many, and as a photographer, a hobbyist photographer, there's so many amazing things to see out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to our friends out at Park. Absolutely. The Air Museum out there, they've got the dish. No matter where you go in the Central West, there are those hidden gems. And I think you're right. It's, we get a lot of visitors kind of staying on the central path, I guess. But if you deviate a little bit, there's some absolute other gems out there that you need to keep an eye out for. Now, a meal that you could eat every day for the rest of your life.
So I am the cook at home. And I really enjoy cooking. But
what's your go-to cuisine? I love my Italian, so for me, I could eat lasagna every day.
So mine's actually taking the traditional Australian meat and 3 veg and mixing it up a little bit. So, you know, spices and, you know, bringing some Asian flavors into it, or anything, rubs or whatever, throwing it on the slow cooker. That's kind of like my thing. So would it be meat and three veg with the, you know, because I can make it so different every time. So, yeah.
Okay, nice. Go-to karaoke song for all those times you've had a couple of quiet sherbets on a Saturday night and you've decided that you needed to punch out a karaoke song.
I am not a singer, and I'm normally the air guitar guy. But for me, it'd probably be Billy Joel, Piano Man.
Oh, classic. Yep. Love that.
Yeah.
Now, getting back onto kind of professional questions, although we could converse on best Billy Joel songs, because he had quite a few good ones.
Yes.
You know, you've had a lot to do with setting up co-working spaces in different regions, and I believe you had a role helping set up the Hive here in Orange. What excites you, I guess, about that kind of resource for our region, and how do you think co-working spaces are going to change work practices in our region going forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, part of my role at IBM was actually to work with co-working spaces, and obviously initially that was very focused on the city centres. IBM forms up partnerships with some of these co-working spaces, not just in Australia but at a global scale. And over time I got a little bit interested after attending a conference in Wagga Wagga in 2018 called 8.8, which was focused about how co-working spaces operate in the regions. And that, I guess, is what brought me on my journey to Orange. It started to make me realise there's a lot of really cool stuff going on outside of the big cities. So I think, you know, so I did help the Hive out with some of their technology. I think the Swains have built a brilliant facility, and I absolutely think it's something that the region need, and hopefully it sets a bit of the standard now for what needs to be done. The Hive is more of a traditional co-working to what I'm normally used to working with. What I normally work with is more like upstairs, so more of a start-up-y, a bit of a blended space, where you have, you know, proper, you know, or not proper, but businesses that are established and looking for a collaborative space, and startups who can come in and can tap into something like that. But yeah, the Hive is beautiful. I'm sure you visited. You know, I think what they've done there is fantastic. It's absolutely at any level of any co-working space that I've visited in any city, not just here but globally. I think they've really set the standard and raised the bar.
Yeah, we'll put the details up for the Hive after today's chat, and there was a really nice article in the AFR maybe a couple of weeks ago, so we might even throw that up, because I think it gives a real great insight into their journey and into that establishment of that resource.
It's very funny you say that. It's every time I seem to post something on LinkedIn that's got the Hive mentioned, and I don't know why, but you know, the view rate on it is just amazing. Clearly people are interested in that, and I think if you're if we're trying to attract people into the regions, I think those co-working spaces are very, very important, particularly the ones modelled like the Hive. Corporates would be really focused on something like that. So if they want to have some of their staff, you know, maybe move out into the regions, but have a secure, you know, space with fantastic internet and lots of other facilities there, then places like the Hive will definitely tick a lot of those boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably a nice dovetail into the next question. You know, you're passionate about regional development, and you've an example of decentralisation in your own right, bringing your family out to our region. But I guess it leads on from that kind of comment, some of the other opportunities that you think are available to the Central West as a result of COVID. And I think seeing more private enterprise looking at working remotely, giving flexibility to staff. Do you think that's a fair comment?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a fair comment. I think a part of it's innovation. So I think, you know, I'd love to see the Central West become a go-to for corporates for innovation, knowing that there are resources that they can leverage out here that they need, you know, spaces like the Hive, software developers, other things that they need, data centers potentially in the future. But yeah, I think, you know, as we move towards this online world and this ability to collaborate and work online, if you want to move out to the regions, you should be able to do that, right? Relatively easily and smoothly. And I think there's a big opportunity, you know, as like what Orange 360 has done for tourism. I think there's a big opportunity to do something similar to attract corporates out and I think we could lead the way. And it'd be nice for us to set a model that could be adopted by other regions, right? So I think that would be a really fantastic thing to see happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's something that's being talked about by local leaders in this region.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that's going to be focused on into the future.
Yeah.
And I think, we have a strong innovation culture already in our region. We have a strong cohort of kind of technology advocates.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the sectors or industries that you could foresee technology and innovation helping to kind of develop and grow in our region going forward?
Look, I think you and I have talked about this since I kind of first met you earlier in the year. I think there's some fantastic stuff going on here in the region. It's a little bit siloed and a little bit pillared. What I think needs to happen is there's a lot of crossover in those spaces. So whether it's ag or it's health or it's just software development, I think a lot of those different entities, mining, could all collaborate a little bit more closely together. Everybody's doing a pretty good job, but they're doing it on a very, as I said, pillared or swim lanes or whatever terms you want to use there. I think what would be nice is a bit more of a blended model where we all work and collaborate, catch up on a more regular basis. Quite often I found a lot of people actually trying to do the same thing, but are not actually aware of each other. And I think there's a big opportunity for us to work together. Like you said, there's some really, really cool innovation folks here and people working in the technology industry, but they're kind of like doing their own little individual thing. What would be nice is if we could all kind of work together a little bit on that, talk more regularly with each other, via forums or meetups or whatever it is that what format we want to do that in. But I think it would be great to see a lot more collaboration in that space. And whether it's around ag or it's around health or it's mining or whatever it might be, like I said, I don't think we need to get into particular industries or sectors. I think a lot of the underlying things that we want to do in innovation will help all of those industries. And I think, having a bit of, cross-pollination, if that's kind of a term, but trying to get all these people to work together, I think would be a really awesome thing. I think that would really lift the bar here in the area. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. And one of the outcomes, I guess, of this COVID period has been, I feel, a closer collaboration between government entities, the business community. And I think you're right, from within the innovation culture and community here, I think that will continue to be fostered.
Yeah.
You're right, there's been some new announcements, one down at Bathurst about the Cybersecurity Centre, and I think it's elements like that which will continue to drive that tech and innovation culture here in our region.
Yep.
Now, Craig, really appreciate you taking the time to catch up this morning. I found it really interesting to learn more about, I guess, your professional journey and some of those insights into technology and where it's going into the future. How can businesses, I guess, that want to learn more about you and Performance IT best engage with you into the future?
Thank you for that. So the best way at the moment, I'm just doing everything via LinkedIn, so you can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat with any businesses in town. You can buy me a coffee and I can talk to you about what you're doing and how technology might help. I do have an advisory business, so so if you want some further engagement and maybe help, I've got a massive network of people that I can call on, from software developers, to business development managers, all sorts of different folks. Quite a number of them actually in the region or in the area, but also calling back into the cities where we need to. But yeah, I guess LinkedIn is the best way to get hold of me right now. I will get a website going, but yeah, right now it's LinkedIn is the best way.
So we'll put up Craig's LinkedIn details for any interested businesses after today's chat. But look, Craig, thank you very much for catching up this morning. Really appreciate your time. And for our regular viewers, let's make sure we tune in same time next week when I sit down with Daniel Purkis, the CEO of the Orange X Services Club. But until then, have a great day, a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week.